Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Two Charlottes Spill the Tea. Today we want to spill the tea on kind of trusting the process. And I suppose you want to know what process that is. So that is kind of like life, really. We talked a little bit last week about this when we were talking about the law of attraction, but we wanted to talk about why certain things happen to you in your life that you might perceive as bad or good. And did you deserve that to happen to you? You know, is it a lesson or a blessing? And why do these things happen? So we wanted to talk really about trusting the process of life, um, and repeating patterns, and when you should make changes and when do you know that you're on the right path. Like sometimes when we're on a life journey or a path, things get really hard before they start to get easier.
Mm.
And you might question that, like, am I actually doing the right thing? Like, I seem to be coming up against obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. Is this the universe's way of telling me this is not the right place for me to be? Or is it the right place? Are you being tested? Are these, lessons that you need to go through before you can evolve and get on to the next part of your journey? So that's really what we wanted to talk about a bit more tonight in a bit of detail, and using kind of our own experiences as we always do to
Yeah.
figure out what what path is the right path, and how do you know when you're going the right way.
Yeah, because I think, to be honest, like it's one of, I think from when I was first starting out with learning about the law of attraction and how the universe works and all this kind of stuff, one of the things that always used to, I get kind of would get stuck with is when something bad would happen, you'd then be like, oh, but I'm doing everything right. I'm, thinking positively. I'm doing my affirmations. I'm, you know, being a good person and putting all the right things out there. Why do bad things happen? And then you'd kind of lose a bit of faith in, oh, does this actually work? Is this actually going to work? Because you're everyone tells you, well, think positively and positive things will happen to you. And then when something bad happens, you're just like, okay, so what did I do wrong? And I don't actually think there is such thing as a negative or a bad thing to happen to you. Like there are some horrible things that happen to people, and obviously ourselves included. We've been through some awful stuff in our lifetime, but I don't necessarily think they're actually bad, because something good came out of every single, for me, and I'm sure you agree, every single bad experience or negative experience we've been through taught us something or gave us something or brought something else into our lives in replacement of what we lost, or you know what kind of went wrong. So I don't actually think there is such thing as bad things that happen to you. I think they're all good things in a way, because they are all teaching you something, or showing you something, and a lot of things become blessings in disguise, I think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. When we were talking about this the other day, we said pretty much exactly that there's not really anything that's, I think when you stop labeling things good or bad, we were saying, and you realize it's all the experience,
Mm.
and that there is definitely either a blessing or a lesson to be learned there. And we were saying, I mean, obviously some people do, like you said, go through some horrendous things that you wouldn't wish on anybody, but sometimes these things have to happen. It's a pattern of life that you're in, and like we were saying, you can repeat patterns over and over again until you take the lesson from them. And I think each time you repeat a pattern, it can maybe get a little bit of a harder lesson, a little bit of a harder lesson, until you finally realize that you have to make a change. You have to do something different in your life. And we were saying the other day that there's that there is that saying that the definition of insanity is when you keep doing the same thing expecting a different outcome.
Yeah.
So when you're stuck in a loop where you're creating the same kind of patterns of behavior over and over again, and it's not bringing you closer to your goals or your dreams or your desires, and you have to make adjustments. And I think that's how you know whether something is an obstacle in your way or not, is because there's a lesson for you to learn in what you're going through. You grow through what you go through.
Mm.
And sometimes you get stuck in either a pattern repeating behavior or a comfort zone, and the universe just does what it does to shake things up for you until you kind of step away from that and
Yeah.
change your pattern.
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, I definitely think you do repeat the same lessons. So, if we're talking about like relationships, for example, if you're, really trying to bring, the love of your life into your world, you want to find that person that is gonna, complete your life and be the love that you deserve, but you keep having the negative self-talk and the self-doubt and repeating the same patterns of picking the same, I'm going to say partners just to not offend anybody.
Mm.
Like I would say men, but I'm going to say partners, like picking the same people over and over again that have the same personality traits that cause you to go down the same path. You're just going to keep repeating that cycle over and over and over again. So until you break that cycle and, start believing in yourself more. And I think most of the time when we're in relationships with people which makes us unhappy, is because of it's a self-worth situation. You don't feel like you deserve somebody to treat you better, so you pick people that will treat you poorly
Yeah.
because you think that's what you deserve. And I think, the universe will keep putting the same people in your path for you to meet the same person over and over again until you learn that you deserve better and to make the better choice. And that goes for everything as far as I'm concerned. It just will just keep repeating.
Yeah, and what I was thinking when you were saying that as well is it's very much the law of attraction at play, because if you keep thinking that you don't deserve better and you're putting it out there with your vibration that you don't have enough respect for yourself, or you don't have enough love for yourself, and you don't think that you deserve better than what you're getting, then you're always going to get more of the same.
Yeah.
So until you flip that switch, and again, it comes back to mindset and mind
Mhm.
state. And I think the whole part of what we seem to be almost constantly preaching in our podcast here is that it's all about the journey of self-love and self-discovery. So the more love you have for yourself, the more honest you are with yourself, the happier you are with yourself, the the more you're putting that out to the universe, the more that you're gonna, get that back. So the
Yeah.
more people you're gonna meet that are honest with you, that love you, that don't have any kind of hidden agendas or anything like that. And the happier you are with what you do for a living, the happier you will continue to be with what you do for a living, and so on and so forth. And it just, I say it surprises me, but the more I think about it, the more it doesn't really surprise me that we keep coming back to the same thing.
No, I think now, because what's this, episode 10 we're recording now,
Yeah.
like every single episode has cycled back to it's all about your mindset and how you think about yourself as the bottom line, like how you treat yourself and how you think about who you are and the choices you make in your life all depend on just having the right mindset around everything and how you
Yeah.
think about things,
Yeah.
because everything seems to just cycle back to that. And I think, that is the bottom line, is having respect for yourself and self-worth, and yeah, being on that journey of finding the way to love yourself is the root of all happiness, I
It
guess.
really, and it really seems to be. And I'm just looking here as well at like some of notes that I made. And, one of the things that we wanted to talk about was like what happens when life throws you a curveball, and how
Mm.
do you stay on track, and how do you cope with these situations that seemingly come out of the blue and you don't see it coming and it takes you by surprise. And it's not what you'd call a positive situation. I don't know, like say maybe you get a letter from your landlord, they want to sell your house, your tenancy is up, suddenly you've got to find somewhere to live, and that's a curveball. You don't feel like you've done anything to warrant that situation coming into your life, and understandably so, but it might not be quite like that. So it's easy for me to sit here now and say to you, look, curveballs happen for a reason. Those things come into your life for a reason. Getting stressed about something like that isn't going to help you. It's so easy for me to sit here and say that. And a lot of you are thinking, how can you sit and say something like that? Like, that's a major issue. If something like that happens, it's a major issue. We're going to fall apart. We don't know how to deal with that. But how I look at things like that now is, there is a reason that you need to find somewhere else to live. Like, again, maybe you've got stuck in a situation that isn't the best place for you to live in. Maybe you do have to drive a bit too far for work each day, or maybe your kid has to get a bus to school each day, or maybe it's not the happiest place for you to live. You wish you didn't live in the town, you would love to live in the country, but you've got a home, so you're just content to stay there. It's like staying in your comfort zone. You're there because, let's face it, who's going to actively look for somewhere else to live when they're settled into a home? It's
Yeah.
not like you don't just turn around and go, right, time to move now, because I'm sure there's somewhere better out there. But sometimes when something like that happens, it is the best in the long run. It might panic you at the time, but actually you can flip that and see it as something like, hey, hang on a minute, this could be exactly what we need. We can finally try and find our dream house in the country, or our dream house in the city, or whatever it
Mm.
is. So there's ways of looking at curveballs that can make them less stressful and more positive. It depends on your mindset and the state of mind that you're in when these things happen. And it isn't easy, but excuse me, it is something that, like, for me and you, and we were talking about this the other day, we've been on this journey for years.
Mm.
Like, we didn't just flip a switch in our brains overnight and be stress free. That's not what I'm
I
saying.
wish.
Like, we've been on this journey to, like, inner peace and personal happiness for years, like years and years, my entire adult life
Yeah.
up until now.
Agree.
And it's still something that you have to work on. I mean, I'm not saying I never get stressed, because I do sometimes, and I have to take some time out and get my head back on the right track and take a few deep breaths, or whatever, and carry on. But
Yeah.
stress causes so much sickness in your body. And we said it before, disease is just a physical manifestation of a dis-ease within yourself. So it's so much better to do that inner work, do
Mm.
the inner work, do the shadow work, look at the parts of yourself that need that healing and help, and kind of move forward from there. Because again, it's what this podcast is called. You have to trust the process,
Mm.
and the process can take years. Like, for me and you, at least 20 years for
Yeah.
me, at
Yeah, I
least.
think, well, yeah, where am I? So 20 years would have put me at 15. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of when all my mental health stuff started, and,
yeah,
went down that kind of path. And so, this has not been something, our mindset is solid now.
yeah,
But even when we were talking about when we were prepping for this podcast before, I was saying, even in the last couple of years, my mindset's become stronger
yeah,
and more stable, and things that would have potentially sent me into a spiral 2 years ago nearly did but didn't. So,
yeah,
because I've been in, like you were saying, obviously, about, when life throws you a curveball, I was in that situation a year ago. This time last year, me and the girls were facing being homeless because our landlord just served us with eviction. He wouldn't renew the tenancy because I was a single income household, and that's a story for a whole different podcast. But we were left in a position where, yeah, we were going to be homeless and potentially living God knows where. So, but I couldn't fall apart about it and, fly off the deep end because I had two kids that you need to support. So, but I'm not saying don't get upset. Like, one thing that I have to be like quite open with is you're allowed to be upset when life throws you curveballs. When things happen, you're absolutely 100% within your right to be upset, negative, angry, frustrated, all of those, low vibration emotions. You are 100% allowed to feel. Just don't unpack and live there, I
Yeah.
think is the thing. Like, feel it, let it out, and then let it go. And that's the way you still then kind of have that faith and trust in the process of the universe 100% has your back. You just have to, you know, keep following through. And I think being able to think positively in a negative situation means you've already won. You've already
Yeah.
defeated whatever it is that's happened because you're able to think positively in a negative situation. And that's when you just have to have this like unwavering faith that the universe has a plan, even though it seems really hopeless and desperate. There is always a reason for it. Like, me and the girls being made homeless last year meant that now we have our own little house now that's just for the three of us, and it is, yes, it is smaller than where we were, but it's our little home, and the girls are really happy. So there was that positive that came out of that negative.
Yeah. Yeah, actually turned out being
Mm,
a really good thing for you in the end. And that's the thing as well, like with hindsight. I mean, I can easily say that with hindsight, everything I went through was, was what I was meant to go through, even though,
mm,
and people often say to me, "Oh, I bet you'd change a lot if you could." And I say, "No, I wouldn't
no,
change any of it because I love who I am right now today, right now, right here today. I love this woman that I've grown into, and I wouldn't be this woman if I hadn't gone through everything that I'd been through. If I hadn't gone through some of the horrible things that I've been through, I would have never been able to help some of the people that I've been able to help who've
mm,
gone through similar things, and wouldn't have had someone to turn to if it hadn't been for me getting through those situations and coming out the other side, a well-rounded, good, happy person. So even the really bad things that I went through, or that you would perceive as really bad things, to me, have been positive in the end because I've been able to help people. I've been able to tell my story. I've been blessed with a lot of experience in life that I've been able to use to either help myself or help other people more.
mm.
So with hindsight, everything looks so different.
Yeah,
And at the time, it can, really seem so stressful sometimes. But I also think that, like, me and you have both been through a lot, and I know a lot of people that have been through a lot of stuff. And now when something happens that, before I might have really stressed out over and been really hard for me to get through. I was saying this to you the other day. I've a really kind of easygoing approach to things
yeah,
nowadays. I don't really do stress anymore. I just don't. I'm touching wood here just in case the universe decides to treat me on that. But I just feel like I've been through a lot. I've been through a lot, and I'm still here. I've been through a lot of hard times, and I'm still here now, and I'm in a good place. So there isn't really anything that I could go through now that I wouldn't be able to handle. I don't think, like, everything that could possibly happen, I obviously have the tools to handle it. Like, I'm either gonna survive it or I'm not.
yeah,
That's what it comes down to for me. Is, well, I'm either going to survive this or I'm not, and if I'm going to survive it, I'm definitely learning something, and something good's going to come out of this because I'm not going through it for no reason, so
yeah.
there's always going to be something good. So the way I look at things now, I'm like, okay, so it's it is what it is. What's going to happen is going to happen. And I've got quite a well-rounded brain for like understanding that the emotional attachment that I have to a situation is different to the logical attachment that I need to have in order to find my way out of any situation or work out a problem or solve, an issue that I might come across. So once I can remove my emotions from a situation, I'm able to kind of see, okay, so I need to do this, this, and this. And like I was always told when I was growing up, my dad would always say to me, like, there's no point, why are you worrying about this? Because he'd give me a call or whatever and talk to me, and I'd be like, look, I'm really stressed out over this. He'd say, why are you stressed out over it? And I'd say, I don't know, because I don't know how I'm going to deal with it. And he'd say, okay, so how are you going to deal with it? I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, well, what's the options? What are your options?
Mm.
So I'd say, right, well, I either do this or I do that. So he'd say, pick one.
Yeah.
Pick one and do it. There you go. Right. So you don't need to worry anymore. And I'd be like, well, yeah, but what if? And he's like, yeah, but you can't live your whole life worried about what if. You pick your solution to your problem, you follow that plan through until the end.
Yeah.
And then,
And if it
you
doesn't
trust,
work, you do something
you
different.
do something different and you
Yeah.
trust the process. And that's all you can do. And when you break it down that simply, like there's no real point in getting worried or stressed about anyone. Like if you think, like if I was thinking, okay, so we have to move out of this house, we might not find a new house. What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, the worst thing that could happen is we all have to live in the car until we find a house.
Yeah.
That's the very worst thing. And I mean, at least we've got a car to live in. But like, yeah, that's not nice. But at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, isn't it? When you think, what's the worst thing that could happen in that situation? Okay, so if we all end up having to live in the car for a month or 2 months or 3 months, like that's what happens. There's
Yeah.
not you get a hostel, you get a hotel, you go somewhere, you do something, you make it work, and then you learn your lesson and you move on, and that's how it kind of it is. And the only thing that makes like trusting the process really hard is your emotional attachment to a problem,
Yeah. And your
I
ability
think.
to switch between the two, being
Yeah,
able to be upset about what's happened, be
yeah,
emotional about what's happened, and then take that step back and go, okay, so this is what's happened. These are my options. Which one is, what can I do right now that is going to resolve that issue?
yeah,
And I think that's the only thing that's, is the difference between a situation happening and you getting really stressed and spiraling and going out of control, upset, emotional, or being like, this has happened. It's really shitty. What
mm,
we're going to do to fix it? And
mm,
like, I do also think, because having spoken to a lot of other people that have also been through loads of bad stuff in the past, I think the more you go through, the easier it is to deal with things, because
yeah,
nothing is ever going to be as bad as some of the stuff you've been through,
yeah,
like, and this is not like a brag in any way, but I don't think there's much that can happen in my life that's as bad as what I went through as a teenager, young adult.
yeah,
I just don't think there is anything,
yeah,
other than, losing my mum. That's probably going to be like the next worst thing that could possibly happen. But I already know how to handle that because I've already lost my dad.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
it's like I sit there and I think, yeah, this is really stress. And obviously, I've come to you over the last couple of weeks with some like stressful stuff that I've been dealing with, but not in a sense where I'm like, I can't handle it.
no, no,
It's
yeah,
just, I'm going to voice it and then we find a solution to the problem,
yeah,
because nothing's ever as bad as the stuff we've already been through in life.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like, but I want to make that clear as well. Like, we're not saying don't get stressed
Mm,
and don't be like pissed off, or don't vent your frustration, because absolutely need to do that. You can't leave an emotion like that festering inside of you. You have to let these things out. But definitely, like you said, don't unpack and live there.
yeah.
Don't move into depression, don't move into anger, don't move into sadness. But I agree with what you said. Like some of the things that that I went through when I was younger, the abuse and the rape, and I think every day, look, I survived that when I was very young, didn't
Mm.
have half the knowledge that I've got now or the life experience or anything. I survived that to become this person that I am right now. So if I can survive that and become who I am now, in a way you kind of almost feel like, yeah, I'm
Can
invincible
handle
in that
this
kind of
too.
aspect. I can handle
Yeah.
whatever life is going to throw at me. I'm not saying that I wouldn't throw my toys out the cart and have a little tantrum,
Oh yeah.
because I can definitely do that, but I wouldn't stay there. I bounce back. I've definitely learned resilience,
Mm. That's
I think.
something I think as well, like over time, especially when you go down the kind of self-healing journey and self-discovery journey and start to kind of love yourself, you do learn to be quite resilient. Because when you start any kind of healing journey, you have to unpack a load of stuff. You
Yeah.
know, you have to unpack a lot of boxes that you've been hiding under your bed for a long
Mm.
time. So you have to then process everything. And I don't know about you, but when I was going through a lot of my therapy and healing, you kind of have to re-feel everything all over again, because you have to
Yeah.
process it properly and healthily and correctly when you're doing the healing part of it. So then once you come through the other side, it's like you experience those traumas actually twice over. So now you're incredibly resilient to those kind of things. And don't get me wrong, I can still throw the biggest temper tantrum when something throws me a curveball, and if I feel like I'm losing control of my little situation, the part of my brain that struggles with that definitely has a bit of a malfunction, but it only lasts a couple of hours,
Yeah.
or a
Instead of like a
day.
couple of months, which it would have
Yeah,
done before.
exactly. Before, it would have been weeks and weeks of stress, and
Mm,
then it would form into like depression and anxiety, and then it would affect my sleep and my eating patterns. And,
yeah.
then I'd start to get sick and my body would start to really suffer, and then my mental health would deteriorate. And, if it kept going and kept going, we'd end up in a breakdown situation like I have in the
Yeah.
past. So, whereas now it's something where I can, yeah, throw my toys out the pram, have a strop about it, and then a couple of hours to a day later, I'm like, right, let's get my logical head on now. I know that this is happening for some good reason, so let's figure it out and go in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to add on to that as well about like the whole part of the journey of healing and self-love is also, understanding shadow work that you have to do. And it's those parts of you, like when you're on your journey and you're healing that trauma and stuff like that, like your shadow work is parts of yourself. I suppose it's like parts of yourself that you like to keep in the shadow,
Yeah.
acknowledging those parts of yourself that you don't see as maybe desirable, understanding your flaws and the things that you might like to hide from people. I think that can be really hard, is facing that, what, like, yeah, I can be a very jealous person sometimes.
Mm,
I hold my hands up and admit that now, but there was a time when I wouldn't have admitted that. If someone paid me, I wouldn't have wanted people to know that, because it's like, I don't want people to know these bad things about me. But understanding those parts of yourself is so important when it comes to your healing journey. And it can be quite hard to be that, what's the word, like, I suppose, that open, having that level of like self-awareness and then that level of compassion for yourself and acceptance for who you are. But it's definitely a part of therapy.
yeah.
And it's definitely a spiritual journey as well, doing your shadow work. But I would say that anyone can do shadow work. It's not, I know the term might sound like quite, I don't know, quite deep on a spiritual or therapy level, but I think anyone can do the shadow work on themselves if you want to look at the parts of yourself that you hide and repress. But if you have a lot of trauma that you're going through, then I would recommend that you talk about it with a therapist as well, because you don't want to be, bringing up PTSD situations and causing yourself more anxiety and depression while you're trying to heal yourself. But
Mm.
definitely took me a long time to I mean, I suppose I'm always doing that. Shadow work is always something that's going on because you're always learning bits about yourself. And, exploring those sides of yourself, I suppose it changes as you get older as well, doesn't it? When I was
Think,
younger, I was very insecure, and probably jealousy or
yeah,
insecurity would have been a huge part of my shadow work. And I don't mean to sound like conceited or anything like that here. I'm not, saying this in a conceited or egotistical way, but I definitely feel like I've come a long way from that. Like I don't feel insecure about myself anymore. I don't get jealous of other people anymore, and I don't feel insecure. I don't look at other people and think, oh, everyone's so much better than me. I feel completely at peace with who I am,
mm,
in my own right.
yeah, and I think that happens as you get older. I think that happens, but I think as you do, yeah, like the shadow work, and you look at the unhealed parts of you and the bits that have been affected by trauma and the personality traits that you might not necessarily want to talk about or admit to yourself that you have, I think when you start to process those, that's when you stop comparing yourself to other people, and the insecurities and the paranoia and the anxiety and stuff tends to kind of disappear with it, because I feel like those are kind of emotions that are attached to unhealed trauma. Those
Yeah,
are like emotions that come up if there is something or a part of you that is unhealed and needs to be looked after. But I want to second what you said, like shadow work is something that anybody can do, and I think we still do it on a daily basis. But I
mm,
would 100% recommend to do the therapy work first if you have unhealed trauma,
yeah,
because shadow work can be quite damaging if you're not ready for it. I don't know if
yeah.
that,
It's quite
that makes it sound a
intense.
bit scary, but like it can be, if you start to be really honest with yourself and open up to emotions, it can open up like repressed memories and
Yeah,
repressed experiences, which if you're not prepared for, could send you completely in the opposite direction.
yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And something that you were saying there just jogged me, and I wrote it down, like the whole comparison thing.
Mm,
That moment when you realize you're not comparing yourself to anyone else. I don't even know if it's a moment where I realized, it's just something that I realized. Um, and I want to bring this up as well. And I think everyone that is in this industry would hold their hands up and say they've been guilty of this,
yeah, I know
probably
where
more than
you're going
once.
with this one.
Yeah, is network marketing and the whole comparison on your journey, and comparing your success to the successes of other people that you see online.
Hmm.
And it's something that is said a lot, is comparison is the thief thief of joy.
Yeah,
And it's so true, and especially with social media, let's be fair, you are comparing yourself to what other people post, generally is their highlight reel. It
yeah,
it really is. And people don't like to post the shit or the bad things, or like, when do you see someone put up a post saying couldn't afford to pay my bills today, got paid, brought this, couldn't afford to pay my bills, now I'm fucking broke till the end of the month, yada yada yada. Like, people don't do that.
no, no, they
Like,
don't.
they'll put up a post with like, check out my Shein haul with like 300 quid's worth of clothes, but they won't tell you that they now can't pay their rent for the rest of the month because they spent all their rent money on a new wardrobe.
Yeah,
So what you think you're looking at, someone living the high life or this, that, and the other, it's probably not. I'm not going to say definitely, because there's obviously people that can afford to do all those kind of things and what have you. But
yeah,
like, comparing your body, your size, your shape, your financial situation, your car, your house, your kids, whatever, right, to someone on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever it is such a waste of your energy and your happiness, because it's what that person perceives as worthy of sharing with other people. That
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean that it's in any comparison to you. And like when we look at the whole network marketing thing, you know, so and so promoted to whatever level, and you joined at the same time, and you can't understand how she's done it and you haven't. And people compare their journeys, they compare how many customers they've got. And even if they don't do it out loud or verbalize it, they do it in their heads. And, you know, they worry that they're not good enough, and then self-doubt creeps in, and then imposter syndrome creeps in, and you think, I can't do this, I'm not good enough for this. And you know, it stops a lot of people kind of pushing forward with the dream that they had when they first joined a company like that, which was, yes, this is going to be my income, this is going to change my life, or yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just see it. I just wanted to say that because I see it so often. I've definitely been guilty of it myself in the past, and it's just, you know, everyone's on a different journey. Everyone has different friends, even if you might all be the same friends on social media. Everyone has different networks. Everyone does things differently. So there is no point in comparing you to someone else or anyone else that you see. You can only compare yourself to the person you were the day before, and, you know, try and do a little bit better, because otherwise it's like you're comparing chalk and cheese and wondering why the two aren't aging the same, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like you are not anyone else, you are only you. So you can only compare yourself to you, because it doesn't make sense to compare you to anybody else. It just
Doesn't.
baffles me. I
Yeah.
mean, it baffles me now that people do it, but I used to be very guilty of that myself as well.
And I have as well, you know, especially in the network marketing space. When I first started out, I always used to see people joining companies and, you know, ranking up like nobody's business. But what I didn't realize is actually this is the sixth company they've been with. They have a network of, you know, thousands of customers and people that have followed them from day one, that will always buy from them and join them. And, you know, like you don't see all of that. And it's you know, it's quite easy to sit there and go, oh well, she joined after me and now she's like top of the compensation plan and has this huge team, but how am I not doing that? But what you don't know is actually she's been doing it for 15 years, so that's
Yeah.
why. um
So
but I
true.
think it's like comparison is so damaging as well to your whole vibration when you are trying to in tune with the universe and trust the process, and, you know, understand that the universe has your back and is looking after you. Because if you start comparing yourself, you're pointing out negative flaws in your own life, and then that just lowers your vibration massively. And, you know, from what we were talking about last week about the law of attraction all being about energy and vibration, and when you're doing things like comparison, it's massively lowering your vibration. So I think, you know, one thing that also I want to touch on is how you tell the difference between the good kind of roadblocks and the ones that are, I don't really know how to kind of describe it, the stuff that's pushing you in the right direction and the stuff that's telling you you need to change direction. So, you know, like if you're thinking about a career move or a relationship change and you start feeling that this is the right thing for you to do, but then you're like, oh, but it's further away from my house, or I'd have to move, or, you know, you come up against these kind of blocks, but in your, you know, your gut feeling is that it's the right thing. Those, I would say, are the roadblocks that are pushing you in the right direction. Those are the things that have to happen for you to get to your end goal, rather than things that are going to happen to keep pushing you back to the starting point. Does that make sense? I feel like
Yeah,
that's a
that
bit
makes
weird to
total
be
sense.
explained.
It's more as well, it's more a kind of feeling, isn't it? Like, you
Yeah,
know, if you need to change job, if you're not happy in your job, you know you need to change job, but you're like stressing out about, like you said, is it too far to drive? Am I doing the right thing? Blah 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 blah. Those aren't, they're not things trying to stop you, even though it
yeah,
might seem like that, because you know deep down inside that's what you want to do.
yeah,
Whereas it's very different if, like, I'm going to use being in a relationship. So if you're in a relationship that you're not really happy in, but you're just staying in because it's easy, or you think it's easy, but you're not actually happy, you might think that the roadblocks are telling you that you should stay where you are, because how do you get out of that relationship? You have to get a new house, you have to do this, you have to do that. You might have to change jobs because you can't afford to pay for that house on your own, or all those things might seem like, oh, it's just there's so many things that are like putting me off doing this. Maybe I should just stay where I am, but you're not actually happy. So if you stay where you are, you're gonna get stressed out anyway, and it's probably all gonna come to a head, but it might take you years before you reach that boiling point and actually just go, I've had enough.
Yeah.
So what you perceive to be an obstacle might actually not be an obstacle at all. It might just be learning curves or things you have to do to get to your goal, I suppose.
Yeah, like a stepping stone to get
Mm,
to the end result. They might seem
mm,
like more stresses and more upset and more,
mm.
negative things, but actually once you get through them, it gets you to the end goal. And if you have
Yeah,
that feeling like your intuition doesn't lie to you,
yeah,
and like I said to you before, you know, if you do suffer with mental health, it is quite hard to be fully understand whether you're feeling the right thing or whether this is the like little mental health gremlins telling you how to feel.
yeah.
But that's where the stuff that we previously, like we've spoken about, already today, is that's where the therapy and the shadow work and the mindset and the shifting kind of happens. It makes you more in tune with your intuition and your kind of gut feeling about a situation. And I think if you get nervously excited but kind of sick with excitement, it's the right decision. If you get sick with fear, it's the wrong decision.
Yeah. And like we were saying, like for me and you now, I mean, when you pay attention to these sorts of things, and I suppose the more healing you do, the more you start to notice things around you as well. For
Mm.
me, like I would always go on the way I feel. The way I feel is the absolute truth about something for me. Like if
Yeah,
I feel a certain way, then I know that's where I'm going. That's what I'm doing. I'll follow my heart because that's me. That's what brings me my happiness and lets me know I'm on the right thing and the right track. And sometimes when I'm doing that and when I feel really aligned with myself and like I'm doing my life's purpose, I get like crazy synchronicities. I feel deja vu a lot. Things will happen and I'll be like, oh God, yes, that's it. I'm on the right path, or I'll see like a shooting star and I'll be like, yeah, I've made the right decision. There's a shooting star. And maybe they're not connected, but for me, things like that like really show up. And I tend to notice more of them when I feel like I'm aligned with what I should be doing and I'm on the right path.
mm,
Um, and I know that when I'm leaving myself in a situation where I'm not 100% happy and I'm not feeling like I'm in the right place, but maybe I'm trying to make the best of I wouldn't necessarily say a bad situation because it's not that I'm talking about any situation at all here, really. But if I stay somewhere that I know isn't the right place for me, or, I don't change jobs or move house or whatever, I'm staying in the same situation that I was in because it's easier, then I can guarantee you things will happen to kind of push me out of that situation one
yeah,
way or another, whether it's loss of income or car breaking down or falling out with someone, or change of pay or something like that. Something will happen and it will happen, and then something else will happen
yeah,
that is enforcing my already opinion that, oh, you shouldn't be doing this.
yeah.
This isn't right for you. So it's definitely down to how you feel, isn't it? 100%. It is really down to how you feel about something. Do you feel comfortable where you are? Happy?
And and I think those roadblocks, when you keep having something that's pushing you in a different direction, is when you have to, sit there and go, do I really want this? Am I
Yeah.
really happy here? Are all of these things happening because actually I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be at this job. I shouldn't be in this house or in this relationship. You know, that's when you have to really start to be really open and honest with yourself about
Yeah.
how you truly feel about things in your life. And I
Yeah.
think, you know, if you do any of the other things that we've spoken about in previous podcasts, you know, kind of doing journaling or affirmations, or like you do, where you kind of check in with yourself at the end of the day, you're going to uncover the parts of your life you need to change before the universe needs to step in and do something drastic. Because
Yeah.
you're going to start to uncover, if you do, you know, like you do, if you do a check-in every day, you're going to start to uncover things that make you unhappy consistently.
Yeah.
And then you can step in the right direction before the universe has to, you know, burn your office down or
Yeah.
send your husband to work in another country or something like that to get you out of that situation. Like,
It's so
you know,
true.
it's a case of checking in with yourself on a more regular basis. And, you know, also if you're doing things like gratitude journaling, if there's one area in your life that you really struggle to show gratitude for, then that's a huge sign that you're not happy in that area of your life. If you can list off things that you're grateful for in every other aspect except your job, then that's a bit of a sign
Red flag.
that maybe you're not happy in your job.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely about paying attention to yourself and being honest with yourself.
I agree. I agree. But I feel like that's been a really good chat. I really enjoyed that actually.
Yeah, me too. And I don't know why I'm always surprised, but I still am gonna say it. I'm always surprised when we circle back to the same thing again.
Yeah,
Like
mine's
mindset, yeah,
yeah.
um, I shouldn't be, but I always am. And it's like a realization each time we talk because we never say it when we're like in our lead up to this, when we're doing our
Mm.
sort of pre podcast chat about everything. We don't usually bring it up. And it's only ever when we're actually recording that one of us will be like, huh, comes back around to mindset again.
Yeah, it does. Like, and I don't know why I'm so surprised, because obviously all of the work that we've done over the years has all been mindset related. But I
Yeah.
always get surprised that I'm like, huh, that's a mindset thing. And I'm like,
Yeah, me
oh,
too.
that's a mindset thing too. And
Uh,
oh, so is that. Like, I don't know why I'm so surprised. I've been doing this for so long that I should just know by now that
just
it's
know.
always a
It,
mindset thing.
it's just crazy how it always comes back though. It just
Yeah.
shows how important it is, how really important it is to your entire life.
Yeah. To have a strong mindset and a
Mm.
strong, you know, belief around everything.
And a strong sense of self-love as well.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. But I really do I really hope everybody enjoyed this episode. Um,
Yeah, and remember
I
to like us and follow us.
yeah, exactly. Do all the things, you know,
Yeah,
whatever it is that the cool
across all
tell you to
socials.
do. And we will be back again next week.